So if you're looking to pick up a camera for filmmaking and videography, don't assume that you'll make the best camera purchase simply by choosing the most expensive camera. Technology moves fast, and if you're not a savvy consumer, you'll end up paying twice as much for a whole bunch of camera you don't need. So to help you make the best purchase, I'll be giving you my 5 best camera recommendations for videography and filmmaking. And if any new better cameras come out after I release this video, I'll try and make sure to update the links in the description below. So coming in at number 5, we have the Canon R6 Mark II. The R6 Mark II has a 24 megapixel full frame sensor and can shoot up to 4K 60 frames per second uncropped video, which is downsampled from 6K. This produces a sharp and detailed image, even when shooting that buttery smooth slow motion. The fast readout speed allows the R6 Mark II to have some of the best performance in this price range when it comes to rolling shutter. The main weakness of this camera is that Canon is shysty when it comes to their lens selection. But if you don't mind adapting EF glass, which is what I personally prefer for reasons which I've discussed in previous videos, then you'll have plenty of high quality and affordable lenses to choose from. The things that make this camera stand out for me are its top-notch autofocusing capabilities, its ease of use, its ergos, the beautiful skin tones, and overall color science. It also has in-body image stabilization, so it's great for run-and-gun videographers. And there's also some good exposure tools like zebras and false color. Canon gives you the C-Log 3 flat color profile for improved dynamic range and easy color grading. And if you really want to get the most out of this camera, you can pair it up with an Atomos Ninja V and get 6K ProRes RAW, which is pretty juicy, considering this camera is coming in at only $2,600. And speaking of things that are juicy, this video has been color graded using my teal and orange juice LUT, which is part of my custom LUT pack that you can pick up for 15 bucks at FulanCreative.com. The next camera on my list is the Sony a7S III, which is essentially the same camera as the Sony FX3, kind of. The FX3 is designed like a cinema camera, while the A7S III has more of a normal mirrorless hybrid body. The FX3 is easier to rig up or to throw into a cage, and believe me, this thing belongs in a cage, because when it comes to filmmaking, it's an animal. It has a top handle with XLR inputs for that crispy and creamy professional audio. But in terms of the sensor, processor, and image quality, the FX3 and the Sony a7S III are identical. Both feature a 12 megapixel full frame sensor, and I know you might be thinking, hey, wait up, only 12 megapixels? But relax, it's intentional, because the low megapixels play a major role in allowing this sensor to eat up other cameras when it comes to low light performance and rolling shutter. The claim to fame of these two amazing video-centric cameras is their dynamic range and the ability to shoot in extreme, and I mean extreme, low light conditions with minimal noise and grain. So if you plan on shooting in environments that don't have adequate light, these cameras are your best options. They also offer a host of other very attractive video capabilities, such as uncropped 4K footage up to 120 frames per second without losing their ability to autofocus, which, by the way, is another one of the main strengths of Sony cameras. Both the a7S III and FX3 have in-body image stabilization, as well as gyroscopic stabilization using Sony's post-production tool called Catalyst Browse. The Sony E-mount is the most developed mirrorless lens lineup currently available. Whether you prefer high-end Sony G-Master glass or affordable options from the likes of Sigma and Tamron, the E-mount has you covered. The a7S III is currently priced at about $3,500, and the FX3 is coming in at about $3,900. But considering that the FX3 comes with a top handle that has XLR inputs, it's worth the extra cash if you need pro audio for documentary work, or if you just want to look cooler in front of your clients. Coming in at number 3, we have a new camera from Lumix, which is surprisingly priced considerably lower than both the R6 Mark II and the Sony a7S III. Lumix has always been ahead of the game when it comes to videography and filmmaking. Pretty much every camera that they've released in the last 6 years or so have been packed with cinema features that other manufacturers reserve for their high-end cameras. The one thing holding Lumix back from dominating the filmmaking and cinematography market has always been the lack of reliable phase detect autofocus. But that's all changed with the release of the Lumix S5 Mark II. Not only does this camera give you all the exposure monitoring tools you could ever want, but they also throw in open gate recording, anamorphic recording modes, superb dynamic range and color science, the best stabilization in the game, and I mean hands down, the best. And now we finally also have reliable autofocus. The full frame 24 megapixel sensor gives you beautiful video, and the stills capabilities aren't too shabby either. The biggest limitation of this camera, in my opinion, is that the 4K 60 frames per second has an APS-C crop. Aside from that one drawback, this is easily one of the most fully featured cameras currently available for filmmakers, especially the run and gun handheld type of shooter like me. The icing on the cake is that the Lumix S5 Mark II is priced just under $2,000. For me, this makes it the best value video-centric camera currently available on the market. And while the next two cameras on my list blow the S5 Mark II out of the water in terms of video capabilities, they are also more than double the price. The number 2 spot on my list goes to none other than the Sony FX6. This camera may be hard to find as it's usually out of stock, but I'll leave a link in the video description below in case you might be one of those people that are fortunate enough to find it in stock. I can't go into all the reasons why this cinema camera is so popular, but I'll give you a few. It has everything its little brothers, the FX3 and A7S III have, as well as all the bells and whistles that you would expect in a high-end professional cinema camera. It goes without saying that the dynamic range, the autofocus, the codec options, and the frame rate options are among the best available in any modern cinema camera. There is one unique feature though that to me makes the Sony FX6 completely stand out amongst its few competitors, and that's the built-in electronic variable ND filter. It's not a normal built-in ND filter like you see on many other cameras. It has the ability to automatically and incrementally adjust the amount of ND to keep your exposure constant, regardless of the changes in the lighting. It's like an ND filter with a mind of its own. Think of it as something similar to an auto exposure function, like auto ISO or auto aperture, but it doesn't alter the ISO, aperture, or shutter speed. It simply automatically adjusts the amount of ND in a smooth and organic way. Totally unlike those auto exposure modes that temporarily leave the highlights blown out as the camera struggles to adjust. It's pretty much like having internal NDs on steroids. Now, before I tell you about the number 1 camera currently available for filmmakers, cinematographers, and videographers, take a moment to hit the thumbs up button for me and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. I appreciate that. Now, I know I'm about to get a whole bunch of comments scolding me in the comments section, trying to tar and feather me and drag me through Sony's headquarters for choosing this camera for the number 1 spot over the FX6. And admittedly, I have to say, that this spot could have easily gone to the FX6 as it's an amazing cinema camera. But when you get into this higher end and higher price bracket of cameras, one of the main things, if not the main thing that you're looking for and paying for is image quality. And of course, image quality is subjective, but there are some measurable factors, things like dynamic range, highlight roll-off, color accuracy, and consistency, especially when it comes to skin tones. And when considering the image quality as the main factor, I have to give the top spot to the Canon C70. Now, I'll be the first to admit that the FX6 has the C70 beat in many ways. The main one being that the FX6 has a full frame sensor, unlike the C70 with its Super 35 crop. Also, the lens selection for the FX6 is far better. Not to mention that the variable NDs in the C70 don't have that auto exposure feature that the FX6 has. And I could probably list a few other things as well, but when it comes to the image that comes out of both of these cameras, I don't recall a single instance where I didn't prefer the image coming out of the C70. And I know you can color grade it to look however you want and all of that, but still, when I look at the work of extremely talented people that use the FX6, people like Mark Bone and Cam Mackey, as awesome as their footage is, I still almost always prefer the footage that I see from creators that use the C70. But again, that's just a personal preference, so do what you want with that information. Now, if you've gotten any value out of this video so far, I'd appreciate it if you use the links below to purchase your new camera, if you're in the market for one. And if you're not, then you must be a fellow camera nerd like me, so I salute you, because chances are that you're a much better videographer than I am. But the difference between me and many of you in my audience is that I took the leap and decided that not only will I be standing behind the camera, but also in front of it. And this opened up so many doors for me. Now, even if that's not something you ever imagine yourself doing, inevitably, as a filmmaker, you'll eventually be forced to get in front of the camera, even if it's just on occasion. And if that's something that you're not comfortable with, or if it's an area where you want to improve, then I highly suggest you watch this video next, where I discuss how a camera-shy person like myself was able to get over my fear of speaking on camera, and how you can do the same. I appreciate you watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next one. It's Fulan Creative, and I'm out. Peace.